We have to start with this. This is the part of the Israeli framing, or the Israeli, where Israel is coming from, that is not discussed. It's not articulated. And it can't be articulated, and it can't be articulated by non-Jews. And that's, in a sense, the privilege I have of being Jewish and Israeli. I can say things that you can't say. Most Jews, I believe, and certainly in the United States, the Jewish community here is defined by its commitment to social rights and human rights and social justice and equality, would absolutely reject this. But this doesn't come from the United States. This comes out of Eastern Europe. And this is very much a part, rather than a democracy, you can look at Israel as an ethnocracy. It's a country that privileges one particular ethnic, national, religious group over all the others. Jews lived 1,000 years in Russia and were never considered Russians. And so when Jewish nationalism began towards the end of the 19th century, the Jews, the Zionist movement, took that tribal, organic form of nationalism as the nationalism of Zionism. It wasn't an American nationalism or a French or a British. It was very much Eastern and Central European. You know, it makes sense. 90% of the Jews in the 19th century lived in Russia. So they're not going to jump, when they start to think about their national identity, they're not going to jump to a Jeffersonian type of democracy. They took the major form of nationalism in that part of the world, which was a tribal one. The land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. That's one of the most common phrases. It's even a phrase that the Jewish Agency uses. So that this is the essential concept. This country does not belong to its inhabitants. It does not belong to its citizens. It belongs to the Jewish people. It's what we call in Hebrew a Jewish democracy in Israel. And therefore, the other side of the coin is that Arabs, now I use the word Arabs purposefully. In Israel, we don't use the word Palestinian very often. We talk about Arabs in a very undifferentiated way, because to say Palestinian gives too much recognition, distinctiveness, legitimacy to another national group that we deny exists. Israel denies officially, the government denies officially that there's an occupation. Where there's no Palestinians, there's no occupation, and there's no conflict. What are you left with? You're left with terrorism. And so everything boils down to terrorism, which is very convenient because then we cast ourselves as the victims. We're the victims of terrorism. They're the bad guys. Israeli policy explicitly says there is no occupation. The Palestinians are locked into more than 70 islands. And you need a military permit, in most cases, to pass from island to island. Not only is there an occupation, but it's a proactive occupation. This is not motivated by security. Israel did not build 300 to 400 settlements because of security. It built them because out of a proactive claim to the country. It didn't demolish 14,000 Palestinian houses because of security. The people were never charged with anything. That they weren't security-related demolitions. I don't think the Palestinians are free of responsibility, but they're not the occupying power. And there is nothing whatsoever wrong with putting the responsibility on Israel and demanding that Israel be held accountable for its actions. Is this your house? Salim says, yes, it's my house. He says, no, it isn't. It's our house now. You've got 15 minutes to get all your belongings out, and we're going to demolish it. So what do you do? And Salim finds himself beaten and thrown out of the house. His wife locked the door, tear gas was thrown in, and the family was flushed out. Salim is lying on the ground. He has no idea where his kids are. His wife went into shock and was taken to the hospital. And, and you watch your house being demolished. And what was his crime? He's not a terrorist. He was never charged with that. He's a perfectly nice guy, not very political, who all he wanted to do was build a home for his family on his own land. We try to resist the demolitions. We get in front of bulldozers, we chain ourselves in houses. We try to resist, but we also try to delay to give time for journalists to come. But we're in a privileged position, I have to say this. As Israeli Jews, we know they're not going to beat us, they're not going to shoot us, they arrest us all the time, as you can see, but we're not put in jail. If Salim would sit in front of the bulldozer, they'd shoot him, period. And Rabbis for Human Rights, which is an organization of 100 Israeli rabbis, are on our board. There's actual starvation in the occupied territories, and it's all induced. Palestinians can't come into Israel to work. They have no economy of their own. And as you can see, all these little dots, all these triangles, are checkpoints. There are actually 750 obstacles to movement between these islands. And for the last 8 months, the entire Jordan Valley, which is 30% of the West Bank, has been completely sealed to Palestinians. And a city is being built in here of 50,000 people. A new settlement city is being built. So if anybody has any illusion that Israel is thinking about a two-state solution, I mean, spend 10 minutes on the ground or looking at the map, and you have to go on to other kinds of options. But demographically, in order to preserve a Jewish state, some purely Jewish state, we have to have a Palestinian state. We have to get the Palestinians off our hands somehow. What do we do with almost 4 million Palestinians in the occupied territories? If this is one country and we're a democracy, why don't we give them citizenship? No, but that's the one-state solution. We can't do that because then it wouldn't be a Jewish country. And we can't maintain the occupation forever, because the occupation itself is violent, it's draining our resources. The answer and the logic is exactly that of South Africa in the time of apartheid with Bantustans. You create a Palestinian Bantustan. There's no negotiations here. You give the Palestinians a little truncated mini-state, you get them off our hands, now they have a state, it's a two-state solution, but we remain in control of the entire country. So Israel built during the Oslo peace process 29 major highways, Israel-only highways, that linked the settlement blocks into Israel, all financed by the United States. Now, if you can possibly look at this and think that Israel had any intention in the world of a viable Palestinian state emerging, then you have an imagination better than mine. And the final element in the matrix of control, of course, is the wall that's being built. The official name is a separation barrier, because separation, which is what apartheid means in Afrikaans, separation is the name we give our policy. It's hafrada. Look at the wall. It's not a security barrier, it's a political border that defines the Bantustan. Look, that's a security barrier? No, it's a land grab. The wall is 26 feet high. It's more than twice as high as the Berlin Wall. It's 7 times longer than the Berlin Wall. You know what's missing in this picture? Israelis. Wait a minute, this is a security barrier. Doesn't it separate Israelis from Palestinians? No. It separates Palestinians from Palestinians. Jews don't like walls. We have some very negative associations with walls. And therefore, this entire complex is built in a way that the Israeli public can't see it. It's built through the heart of Palestinian communities, dividing. This is a grandmother, and her grandchildren live over here, separated with the wall. Schools are separated, hospitals are separated, businesses. It's a demographic separation. And this is why we call it apartheid, because of separation and domination. The option that the international community adopted, that the Palestinians agreed to, and that the Arab world, the Arab League agreed to, in what's called the Saudi Initiative, is a viable two-state solution. A state of Palestine in the occupied territories, all the occupied territories, alongside of Israel, where Israel keeps 78% of the country. That's the worst case scenario for a two-state solution, and Israel says no.